Okay, so we are live in Coach Community. Good evening, everyone. I hope some of you will be able to join us for this evening's live. And it's with great pleasure that I welcome Alison Coates, who is tuning in live with us all the way from Durban. So welcome, Alison, tonight.
Thank you, Teresa. It's really great to see you again and to be back in the community.
Yeah, thank you. And also, it's very hot where you are, isn't it? Just want to share how hot it is, because we've had a pretty cold day here. So it's been a bit too hot, you say?
Well, the temperature said it was 31 degrees, but it feels like it's been about 40 degrees. It's been so hot today, and it's humid. So
that's the worst thing, isn't it, to cope with? Well, you're doing very well, looking very cool, calm and collected. So if any of you, hopefully all of you, have read Coach magazine from January, and Alison's article here was all about the hot topic of resilience and emotional intelligence. And Alison is a certified emotional intelligence coach and a qualified industrial psychologist, program and project manager. And when we talked about that word industrial, remember I said to you, what on earth is an industrial coach? So do you just want to explain that bit to us before we carry on, so everyone understands the different language that we use?
Yeah, I think over in the UK, you would refer to it as an occupational psychologist.
Right.
So yeah, so as an industrial psychologist, you could do a social studies, or I did a BCom, and then you would work you start out working in HR. So you work alongside HR or in business change. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the article, we hear this word a lot, don't we, Alison? The word resilience. Okay, we must be so resilient, we must build resilience. And I do think that it can cause a little bit of confusion sometimes around what it actually means to be resilient and to have resilience. And I always say, it's not about having the skin of a rhino and just powering through and just being so resilient, you're just going to get up and fight another day against all the odds. It's not that, is it? No. So do you want to give me a much better description in a much more emotionally intelligent way than that? Because I do think people think it is that whole being tough thing sometimes.
Yeah, so mental toughness comes into it.
Yeah.
But resilience really is about being able to bounce back. It's not just about bouncing back and maintaining the status quo, though. It is about being able to bounce back from those tricky or negative situations. And then the most important distinguishing feature about resilience is the ability to keep moving forward. But when we're moving forward, it's not like that rhino just, bouldering through the bush, or doing, just going in with rhino hide, and you're saying like you're just being strong. It's actually about moving forward intelligently, using your emotions intelligently to be able to move forward in a more productive manner. In emotional intelligence, we talk about having productive behaviors and having unproductive behaviors. So it's that ability to keep moving forward, those 1% gains day in, day out, that ultimately get you to that improvement. So that is, a lot of people stop with the description when they say, oh, it's just about being able to bounce back. But if all we do is bounce back, then all we're doing is maintaining the status quo. At best. And that's not growing, that's not learning, that's not developing. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I did have a conversation with somebody not so long ago who said that, sometimes resilience is a little bit kind of overused, and that actually what's really important is to not kind of let it happen, but sometimes you just got to really feel where you're at. So you do need to kind of go down and dig into where you are, which could be kind of a low point or a difficult point, because if you have too much resilience further up, you never actually get to go down and then properly come up and build the tools that you can build at the bottom, if you like. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And that talks to one of the key characteristics of people who have got emotional resilience, and that is that they have self-awareness. They are aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, that they also are comfortable being vulnerable. In other words, they're comfortable going in and exploring what their strengths and weaknesses are. They're comfortable to ask for feedback. They're comfortable to ask for help. So it's all of those more, the more of the, I want to say mature, but I mean mature in a positive sense of being able
an
to
awareness
actually,
sense.
yes, of being comfortable enough to actually sit in that awareness for a while and understanding your own strengths and weaknesses so that you can move forward. Yeah, I like that, the way that they've described that. That's quite good.
Yeah, and they actually did it a lot better than that. But that was my understanding, and I think that is, it made me really think about it, because sometimes we try and bounce too quickly, perhaps, and unwittingly move past things a little too fast, when actually we do need to look into it. And of course, all roads, as far as I'm concerned, lead to self-awareness, and the more that we can raise our consciousness and our self-awareness of ourselves, of course, we can improve. So I guess that leads us to the kind of emotional intelligence, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And it's that self-awareness. One of the disciplines of practicing self-awareness is reflection. So it's being able to sit down with yourself at the end of the day or after an experience and really reflect on that experience in such a way that you could ask yourself the question, how could I do this differently next time?
And that is interesting, because that, I've got to be really honest with you and people watching, that is something I did not used to do very well. And I used to think that people that reflected a lot were kind of slower and didn't get stuff done and all that kind of thing. And reflective types, if you like, can be a bit like that when they're reflecting too much and not taking any action. Because I was always, and still am, sort of go-getter and quite energetic. But what I've learned since, training to be a coach and all the work that I've done over the last 2 or 3 years is that I can reflect really well now. And in fact, I love it. I need it. And it's made so many big differences to me as a person, and obviously as a coach as well. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit more, is how this can help in coaching and in our practice. And by the way, someone just knocked on my door and the dog's gone mad, but unwanted visitors at 7 p.m.
It's okay. I said I gave my 2 dogs strict instructions to keep quiet and go to sleep. So hopefully they have.
Well, Charlie's really good normally, but if the door goes, he thinks he's a big dog and he's not. So let's have a little look at some of the things you say around
in the article.
Like the practical emotional management strategies you've written down here, which you say, sets the groundwork for resilience. And one of the things I thought was really interesting in here was around the communication and relationship strategies, because asking for and effectively responding to feedback. Now you mentioned that, Charlie, please, I'm talking about resilience. And you mentioned feedback, and of course feedback is a difficult thing really for some people to hear. And certainly it's definitely a skill to deliver good feedback, isn't it? So that can be that fine line between excellent feedback and criticism, and then of course depending on how people take it. So talk to us about feedback, Alison, and what you know about that.
So there's obviously 2 sides to feedback, exactly like you say. There's the receiving of feedback, and then there's also requesting it. And I think in both instances there, I always say we need to give ourselves permission. First of all, give yourself permission to ask for feedback, and give other people, and give yourself permission to also hear the feedback that's been given back to you. And feedback for me as an adult is my opportunity to learn. It's always been I've always used it, even when I was in projects and programs, when you're running we would call them lessons learned workshops, which are basically opportunities to reflect on how we're doing. And feedback for me is an opportunity to learn. So I guess if you come with that mindset about it, then it's not going to be scary. Obviously, if somebody gives you some feedback that triggers one of your primary values or an emotion that you hold to be quite dear to you, then that defensiveness comes up. but we, through practicing mindfulness, through practicing listening, through practicing just allowing that the 3-6 seconds just to take a breath and really take in what's being said, you can start to respond rather than react to what's being said.
Yeah, and that's it. And of course you need that little bit of time. You know, the pause is so powerful because like you say, it will come up. We're human, and sometimes you know, if one of those things is triggered, we'll feel it kind of rise, and you want to possibly say something. But just allowing that feeling to sit there, and then it will pass because it's just a state, you know, and then thinking, I mean, you know, it's really difficult to lean in sometimes, isn't it? You know, we've all been in those situations where we think what we think, we believe what we believe, and we stand for what we believe. And then somebody comes in with some feedback or a different kind of approach to it. But learning to really listen to that. And I think people that I've spoken to, clients I work with, sometimes have the perception that, yes, but if you listen to it and you agree with it, then that means they're right and you're wrong. And I'm like, we need to take out the right and the wrong from it in order for it to be useful. Certainly from the position I work with, NLP, there is no right or wrong, you know, and there's no failure, only feedback. And so it's a difficult thing, that, because people do get upset, don't they, around feedback. So can we talk about feedback with clients? Like, how do you manage feedback with clients, for instance, if they've asked for feedback, or in a particular situation they might need it? Really, it's one of our roles.
I guess then my psychology training would kick in, and this is one of the things that I really love about being a coach, is the language that we use as a coach is a lot more definite. Whereas as a psychologist, I was trained anyway 25 or so years ago to speak more in terms of, well, there's a tendency towards, or I've noticed that. So it's a little bit more delicate in terms of how we deliver it. My style of giving feedback, with being part of Toastmasters, I've learned a lot about how to give feedback to people. And it comes back to that age-old thing about it's that sandwich, isn't it? You need to provide them with something that is what they've done well, and then something that you've noticed, an opportunity for development, and then you close up by summarizing, and you always end off with a positive. And I know it sounds a little bit manipulative, but you don't want the person to leave the session feeling deflated. There's a message in there anyway, and that's how I would deliver feedback.
And you're right, and I think, you know, the way that I've been sort of trained in coaching to deliver feedback is certainly say, you know, I would invite you to think about, or I would offer to you, or I've noticed that. I mean, that is the kind of language I absolutely would use as well. And, you know, I mean, having been in the business that I have, and sales and marketing and publishing for over 20 years, I mean, that's just the good old shit sandwich, isn't it? I mean, might as well just say it. It's like, you know, because if you're going to be delivered something that is, you know, a little bit off, or, you know, it's going to be hard, I don't think it's manipulative to, you know, frame that with two positive statements, because people can only take so much. And I think, well, you've said two really positive things to me that are true, of course, not just smoke blowing, but true. And I can see that. And then this thing in the middle, I can take that a bit easier now because I'm quite good here, and this is strong. And I think, you know, if anyone couldn't quite take that, you're going to be in a bit of trouble, really, with the delivery of feedback, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also believe that it's our role as a coach to use those techniques, whether we phrase it as a statement or a question, to allow our clients to have a positive experience, but also, more importantly, to get a positive outcome for themselves. And if we're not being genuine in our conversations with them, and if we're not being genuine in our feedback to them, then what is the point of the coaching relationship, really?
Well, this is it. And I think that's what can be challenging sometimes as well, is that it's not always easy, is it?
No.
The coaching is not always easy, because
No.
you know, I certainly believe that as a good coach, you must look for those opportunities where you can lean in and you can, you know, challenge a little bit more.
Yes.
And challenging doesn't necessarily mean a negative thing, or you're going to be confronted, but there are times when that is exactly what the client will consciously or unconsciously need and want, and you know instinctively must happen. And that's a very fine line, isn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. With my first session with my clients, I always say to them, and I ask them for permission to let them know when I feel like they are not playing big enough, or when I feel like they are undermining themselves, to give me the permission to raise that with them.
Absolutely.
And so I might just remind them of that. And obviously you need to be aware of your own emotions. And that's one of the things with the resilience, that it is about being aware of the emotions in the room at the time. So not only your emotions, but your client's emotions, and about being able to make intelligent decisions about your next move based on those emotions in the room. So if we can do that, and if we can ask the right questions, and well, not the right questions, ask the what's the word that I'm thinking of, those profound questions, that opens up opportunities for our clients to see the answers for themselves, then we're doing a good job as a coach.
And you're right, it is about the right questions for that right moment, because those powerful questions in the right space, those are the ones that, you know, facilitate those kind of transformations. Where all the pennies just start dropping and stuff like that. But also going back to what you're saying, Alison, is that, you know, that's a really important part, isn't it, of contracting with your client at the beginning. Like, not just the paperwork that you send out, what they sign and comes back, but actually that verbal contracting and that emotional contracting that you do with them around, you know, how you guys are going to work together and how they would like to be treated and how they would like to be, you know, protected and looked after, and how they would like to be challenged. And that is really, really powerful. And of course, if there's been no training or guidance around that, then people don't know how to do that. And of course, it can leave the landscape then, I think, open to all kinds of things which we hear about.
No, for sure. And also the other thing we need to be aware of is, you know, we, as a coach, we operate within wherever we are, whatever country we're in, there'll be a code of ethics. And we have to honor that code of ethics. And we also have our own personal beliefs and ethics for our own lives, our own values. And if we're not doing that reflective work to really understand and become aware of our own emotions and our own strengths and weaknesses, then when we are confronted with a client who perhaps has different values to us, how are we ethically going to handle that? Because we can't project onto them. Those are their values. So we have to do the work to be able to have those conversations that still allow them to honor their own values and emotions without our feelings and emotions railroading them. If you understand what I'm saying.
I just couldn't agree more, because the thing is as well that what we're talking about is understanding people, who they are on you know, on their framework, on their map of the world, and being there with them. And you know, I see various things in sort of communities and other places where, oh, how can I make my clients see that they're wrong, or how can I get my client to do this, and why do they keep saying that? And you know, really, it's shocking that sort of practice is going on, because that is just a whole mapping on. It's like, what I think is right, I'm going to tell you. And so all of this falls into, like you say, of course, the pot of ethics, but also, you know, developing your own emotional intelligence and awareness of the situation that you're in with someone. So something else that you said in here as well is about leaning into difficult conversations. So let's just talk about that for a minute, because you know, in general, and I am generalizing, there's not many people that really enjoy a difficult conversation, and will naturally shy away from them. And of course, there's no learnings or path to be carved forward when you avoid things. So what's your thoughts around that, Alison? The best way to lean into a difficult conversation, or maybe an example of how you've done it?
Yeah, so it's about just being present and not and actively listening to what's being said, because where judgment and where our own beliefs start to get in the way is if we have our own conversation going on in our mind while our the client is still talking to us. So it's really just about practicing being present and letting them talk, but actively listening at the same time. And I often find that if I'm feeling like I need to comment or say something, but I'm just not sure what to say, I've always got it's a little tactic. I've always got a glass of water or a cup of tea, and I'll just have a nice quiet sip while I take my 3 breaths before I say something. Just really practicing that calm mindfulness, because you don't want to be reactive. You want to respond in that circumstance.
And I guess that helps us too, just by doing that, to get a little closer to that conversation. And of course, what about, let's take it out of the coaching space just for a minute and talk about life. What about these difficult conversations in life? Because we've got all these skills that we can use so beautifully in our coaching spaces. And actually, the challenge is, do we use these in our own personal spaces? Okay. And I think that's really, really important, because that's a question of alignment and sort of how you are living your life in general. And with people that we are close with, intimate relationships, friends, family, lovers, husbands, partners, whatever. Let's talk about leaning into difficult conversations there, because this is like a whole nother world, isn't it, really, of emotional intelligence.
Myself personally, I don't personally, I think anyone who knows me would say I don't have a problem leaning in, or actually sometimes stepping right into those difficult conversations. So I actually have to actively step back from, because I'm that person who wants to go in and sort it out.
And do you find that tendency, you're able to manage that between personal and coaching? Do you ever feel like that a little bit when you're working? Or is that really when you're Alison and?
No, I think my style in coaching is a lot. Well, my perception of myself. So I would welcome any feedback on that. Is that I'm a little bit more gentle than I would maybe be, and those difficult conversations. It's all the things that we talk to our clients about. You're feeling frustrated, you've had a long day, it's hot, time is running away, all those things that trigger you.
Yes.
And how are you managing those in your own day-to-day?
This is it, because we're people at the end of the day, aren't we? We are humans. And like you say, take us out of our professional space and where we're working, and put us next to the person we love the most, or family, and it can be different. And so I think as well, the sort of communication strategies that we use in our relationships, certainly things that I have learned over time in this space have helped me to manage things so much better, so much better. But sometimes not. Sometimes, you are just like, you don't feel like being that emotionally intelligent, or you're just irritated. But sometimes serious discussions need to be had. And I think at that point, all of these learnings come in, and you sort of really muster up that patience and using that step back. And because when emotions are involved, of course, it's different, right?
Definitely. Ideally, in an ideal world, if you know that there's a difficult conversation about to come up, then as coaches, we would be guiding, we would be helping our clients to see the benefit of preparing for that conversation. So what could you do? What could you do to make sure that this conversation is positive? So we need to practice some of those things for ourselves. So I always like to bring values into my practices.
Yeah.
So early on in my coaching sessions, in the first few sessions, I really spend a lot of time with my clients to understand what their values are.
Same.
And
that is amazing.
Yeah, and I will always refer or revert back to them. And I would say, like, for example, I might say, so Teresa, you said joy was one of your prime values. So maybe think about, how could I bring more joy to this situation?
Yeah, exactly.
And reflectively journal on it and really think about it. And if you've got that mindset, and if you've coached your clients in how to ask the right questions for themselves, then they can do the preparation.
Yeah, I think you're so right, because certainly as far as I'm concerned, the values that we hold and the things that are important to us are everything. It's the foundation of everything. And I know there's a lot of coaches in this group that resonate with that, and beyond this group, because it really is. If you try and dig any further down than your core values, I haven't found anywhere to go yet, like beneath that really yet so far. And everything really is to be lived by. And so it's a different thing to just have like a few words on a piece of paper, and to say, well, these are my values, and then randomly, any clients that are watching this will agree with this. What I do occasionally is, we're talking about something, and then I'll say, remind me of your values. And you go, oh, I don't know. Wait, it's on my notes. And I'm like, no. let's really think about that. And as that goes by, it starts to sink in more and more why they are really, really important. And you know, you start using them as tools as well, like everything else in our kit, to actually check in with, you know. So like you say, how joyful am I being about this? You know, what joy am I offering? Or inviting in this situation, and how could I just a little bit more if it's difficult? And so, you know, it's an endlessly fascinating conversation to me, and I hope to others, and learning all the time, which is what this community is about, really, for us to have chats like this and really learn from experts in the magazine and from each other. I think that is just so powerful. So I hope people will take a lot from this, because it's just, and it's all in the article as well. It's totally worth another read about this, and having a look at your website. And you can put any links that you want to that are useful. If you know. And here, just to sort of wrap up, it says environmental strategies. You know, modifying your day, planning time for proactive management. Time blocking as well, and this sort of leans into a little bit of sort of boundaries and management there, but they are emotional management strategies. You know, they do really, really work. And so looking at these, and sometimes we look at things and think, oh my goodness, that's such a lot, and I can't do all this at once. But you know, I'm a big believer in the compound effect, and if you just started, for instance, one or two of these and building them into your practice and building them into your life, for anyone that's not a coach here and doesn't think in that same way, you can try it. You can just put one thing in and try it, and you'll be amazed at the difference, really. I
Absolutely.
think that's what you find, don't you?
Yeah, and one of the articles that I read a little while ago, and it's stuck with me, it said that what emotionally intelligent people do is not special, but what they do is they are self-disciplined about the habits that help them to build emotional resilience or self-management or self-awareness. So when we're talking about resilience, that's why planning your day or planning your week is to say, where in my day, in my morning, during the bulk of the day, and then again in the evening, have I got some thinking time? Have I got some have I blocked out some physical activities that will help me to build my resilience? So as simple as, do I have 6 to 8 hours of sleep booked out every night? Or am I surviving on 4 hours? So it's really about that discipline of putting those things into your diary and honoring yourself enough to be committed to those slots in your diary.
Yeah, this is it, because we can all write down things that we're going to do and then let everything fall in. And then when somebody needs something, we're like, okay, well, I'll just do that. And then suddenly it is a late night, or, you know, and I'm much, much better. And I'm so strong at being able to do that now, because I do value my time, and I do actually value other people's time in exactly the same way. So, you know, time blocking and all the things that I've never been very good at in the past, because I'm quite a creative type. I'm a salesperson at heart. I just want to get things done. So the admin side of me haven't always been the best of friends. But I really have worked very hard on that now, and the difference is just immense. So, you know, wherever it is that you guys need to lean into and look at, always look at it, and then find people that are really good at it as well, and ask them and share like this, because we cannot, there's no way we're good at everything. I mean, that would just be weird, right?
No, and it's that, you know, like exactly like you were just saying there, find somebody who's good at it. I'm really sorry, but there are no more new ideas. They've all, you know, I don't think there's much left in the world to invent. So we're not going to come up with those new ideas ourselves. I'm really sorry if you were planning on doing that. So find somebody who knows what you need to do. And like, you know, Tony Robbins is my guru. He has been for many years. And like he says, just go and mirror them, or, you know, go and model them, and just immerse yourself in everything that they do, have read all their habits, so that you can become that characteristic or that you know, behavior for yourself.
And it's actually, it is an actual method in NLP, which is modeling, positive modeling, to look at somebody and think, do you know what, I love what they're doing, I love how they do it. It's not about wanting to be them, it's not about comparison, but you take in using that what you really like that person does, and then you bring it back into yourself and you think, how can I do that in my way? You know, and that's a big thing to beat comparisonitis, NLP modeling, and I find that extremely powerful, very positive, because you're right, there are no new things out there really, just all the stuff we don't know. So that means we've got loads to go for. There's loads we don't know. We're never done learning. Every single day I learn something new. And, you know, even for conversations like this especially, I think, oh yeah, I just, you know, I get so much from this that I can then build into you know, myself as well. So I hope you've really enjoyed it as much as I have, and I hope that people watching have enjoyed listening to Alison. Full of good stuff, full of wisdom. So thanks for sharing it. And yeah, if you want to put in your any links or articles to resilience, or anything that you think is helpful, please just drop that in.
Will do.
And hopefully some people, Megan's here. Hello, Megan. And Ian was here earlier. So
hello, Megan. Megan's in Joburg, I think.
Yeah, she's lovely.
If it's the right Megan,
yeah. Yes, it is. It is that Megan, and we've got quite a few South African members in the community as well, which is lovely. So
Megan knew me when I was doing my industrial psychology internship.
Oh, really?
Those years ago, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think you mentioned that you guys knew each other. It's really nice when those connections are sort of remade.
I know, it's lovely.
Like so awesome. Thank you very much, and I hope the heat is kind to you and that it will cool down later on. And you can relax. So thank you for your time so much.
Pleasure.
And I'll speak to you very soon, I'm sure.
Speak to you soon.
Take
Have a
care.
Great evening. Bye.
Bye, Alison. Bye bye now. Bye, everyone.